I'm 81 years of age and have almost 1 billion citizens. I've been in office 62 years, making me the longest-serving monarch in history. Have we finished?
Abdul, you will travel to England, to the royal household. You will present the Queen with a ceremonial coin.
Whatever you do, you must not look at Her Majesty.
There's a famine in India.
Prime Minister, you really are terribly depressing.
Yes.
Julie, Your Majesty.
I suddenly feel a great deal better.
She has requested Mr. Karim be her personal footman.
How do you like your Scottish costumes?
They're very scratchy.
Everything in Scotland is scratchy.
What can they be talking about?
What is a mango?
The Queen of Fruit.
I would like a mango.
They only grow in India.
Well, I'm Empress of India, so I have 1 cent. No one really knows what it's like to be queen.
Mother.
You're spying on me. Everyone I've loved has died, and I just go on and on. What is the point?
Service, Your Majesty. We are here for a greater purpose.
You are a servant no longer. You will teach me Urdu and the Quran.
You've upset the order of everything.
Drop this Indian peasant, or we will have you certified insane.
I am cantankerous, greedy, fat. I am perhaps disagreeably attached to power, but I am anything but insane. I am Queen of England, Empress of India. Abdul has risen on his own merits. Now he is my friend. I haven't been as happy as this for years.
A little surprise.
What is it?
A mango, Your Majesty.
It's off.
Sir Henry, this mango is off.
These are the people behind the trailer that you just watched. Shrabani, I want to start with you. You started writing this book, you told me, backstage in 2006. You published it in 2011. How did the adaptation start? Who first approached you, and what was it like when Mr. Frears and Judi Dench started jumping on board to take part?
Well, as the book was published in 2011, there was a lot of studios who were interested immediately. It had got really good reviews, and I was on radio. And
Look at you, no.
And the screenplay writer happened to be listening in. I was actually told you'll get 2 minutes at the end of this program. So I had to pack it in 2 minutes. So luckily, he was having his tea and he was listening in. So he was very intrigued. So he was one of those who put in a bid, along with working title. And because it was Lee Hall, and I really like his work, he did Billy Elliot, and he did War Horse as well. So I felt he was, I felt my book would be in safe hands.
And how did he approach you about adapting it? Because as we see in the film, it says, based on real events mostly. So obviously there was some liberties that were taken from your book to adapt it into a film. So how did they approach that with you?
Oh, that was fine. I mean, I was fine with that. A book is a book and a film is a film. And you can't pack everything in 90 minutes. It would be disastrous. The book has so many layers. But you have to have the storyline and the main plot points. And he did all that. So everything is there. And he included the funny bits. I mean, the mango is actually true. And I told him, you must have these little anecdotes. And you must have the mango story. It's my favorite.
So those were your demands. The mango must remain in the story.
I love mangoes.
He must have been a very happy screenwriter. He's like, that's all you want. Let's go. I'm good.
Yeah. So he really, I mean, he's done it. It's a cracking screenplay. It's funny and it's sad and it's exactly what I wanted.
Absolutely. Stephen, what made you want to, you've done royalty before. What made you want to do this film, which in many ways is a companion piece to John Madden's Mrs. Brown in the mid-90s?
Well, I read the script and it was very funny.
Simple as that. Let's leave it.
Well, then it had a story whose politics I found sympathetic. I didn't know this story before. I just thought it was great.
Ollie, you get to work with Judi Dench. She's unbelievable, and she's doing sort of the kind of role that she she's born to play. There's nobody else that can really do this role like her. What was it like, scene by scene, working with her?
I had to make mine. I went through actually a long process of auditioning for this, and I got it after that. So Stephen took me through this whole grilling process of about 2 months, and then there's Judi Dench, and you know, it just she's so good. She makes you look good, makes my job easier.
There's a question that I always have when it comes to an actress like Judi Dench, who's so good and seemingly effortless, which is how effortless does it seem to the other actor when you're on set with her?
Oh, it does. I think it really does. It does not intimidate me. It's nectar to me. I mean, you know, when she's so good, your game is up. And she's constantly, and she doesn't need to, but she's constantly reinventing herself. You know, she's sort of breaking patterns and just going at it one after another. And so, you know, you start having fun with it.
And Stephen wasn't going to do the film without Judi. Is that right, Stephen?
Yeah.
Yeah, he said, Judi Dench, or I'm not doing it.
More or less.
So your condition was the mango. Yours was Judi Dench. And what did you guys have conditions based off of how you did the film?
No, I just, if you know my career path, which goes from accounting and financial management at university to street performing through stand-up into dramatic acting. It takes, I think, a brilliant person to work out that maybe I could go and play that. And that Stephen is a brilliant person, and he took a chance on me and said, yeah, he can play this big, huge king, because he's I mean, Queen Victoria's eating herself to death at the beginning of the film, but so is Bertie, who becomes Edward VII. And
very conniving, but also sort of sniveling at the same time.
Conniving and sniveling, these are the two of the places I was going, conniving and sniveling. But it was more, it's actually, if you think about it, it's not a mother and, they really didn't get on. She blamed her son for the death of her husband because he discovered sex in his teenage years. He was off the rails already, and he started having sex left, right, and centre. And his father went to read in the Riot Act on a blustery autumnal day back in 1861. And after 4 hours of walking in the countryside, so that obviously no one could hear what he was saying to his son, he died of typhoid fever 2 weeks later. So there's this hatred between the two. It's more like sister and brother. And Victoria has the ball, and he wants the ball. Bertie wants to play with the ball. Can I have the ball? And she will not let him have it. And this guy is in the way. Abdul Karim was in the way. And I actually just worked out that I don't know if I actually say anything to you. Do I actually address you formally? I don't think I say words to you. No. It's that much hatred that I'm not even going to deem myself to talk to him.
It's in fact right at the end. Right at the end of the film.
Right at the end of the film, I'm still talking sideways with you, aren't I? I'm talking over you. You know, I just don't. I dislike this person intensely. He is in my way.
It's a different kind of performance. I mean, you've done dramatic performances before, but this is a very different kind of character than I think we're used to seeing. And I think, like you said, it takes a director like Stephen to know that you can do this, because you are a performer that's very high energy and is incredible to watch be high energy. But with this character, you kind of have to rein that in and use it in a different way.
Well, if you track, I actually, I like to feel that, well, some people get really well-known in comedy, and then they say, can I do a drama as well? And they jump across from the high mountain of doing $100 million comedies to do a smaller drama. I actually went to the bottom mountain from comedy. I went to the bottom of the drama mountain and started hacking my way up that mountain. So I've tried to do good roles over the years, and my whole dramatic work is totally different to the stand-up comedy. It's just a different feel. Bottom line is to be truthful. And Stephen just let me go play.
When it comes to Abdul, he's such a fascinating character because he's wholly sympathetic, but to his other, his Indian friends, he is seen as an opportunist and a kind of social climber. And that is also, I would say, a bit of a part of his character. What did you think of him and in regards to his sort of, his social climbing and his interest in status?
I like that. I think that's one of the reasons what really attracted me, because nobody's all goody two shoes, you know, and it's not a bad thing. God, it's, you know, the word opportunist is considered this negative word. Everybody's doing it, even now, and I think that's why the story resonates with today. You know, we're so many of us, different countries, we're basically climbing up the social ladders.
Means that you're trying.
And in this case, what there was, it was in the face of oppression and racism and so much more. I mean, they were from two opposite ends of the spectrum, just trying to have a conversation, just trying to talk. And they saw each other for who they were and not the costumes or, the protocol and everything else. Of course, I mean, the visual, it's wrong. Everybody, people will look at it and say, well, obviously he's trying to take advantage. And that's why he was in the way. Yeah.
You started writing this in 2006, and I had sort of brought this up in the green room, and I don't think it was necessarily on your mind, but 2006 was a really tumultuous time when it came to relationships between the US, the UK, and Muslims around the world. And I'm wondering if one of your interests lied in showing sort of two people bridging that gap and coming together and learning from each other.
Absolutely. When I first learned that all the letters had been burnt, and then I read the whole detail of how these letters were burnt, how they had this dawn raid on his house, and to me this was happening in the East End of London at that time. Dawn raids, people being pulled out, suspected terrorists, many of them released in an hour, but just the humiliation that they went through, or they were kept in. So it had resonances to me. All this was. Also relevant. It was relevant in 2006, and it's actually even more relevant now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I think the borders are going up,
What happened
more.
in 2006?
Well, in 2006...
Fallujah.
What they had to...
In Fallujah specifically? I mean, I think there was a fair amount.
Well, you said 2006 was a special year.
Well, she started writing the book in 2006.
No, I know that, but that didn't provoke riots.
5 years after 9/11, the UK and the United States were in Iraq at that time and Afghanistan. So there was still heavy Islamophobia across the western part of the world.
And now it's gone. So.
You didn't
absolutely not.
You didn't expect to get grilled in this, did you?
No, not at all. I also don't think I'm wrong. I don't think it's gone at all. But I think yeah, sure, 10 years, 11 years later after starting the book, it's still important to get this message out, I think.
No, I just think, because when you said 2006, I was also going, well, but you mean all the way through that time because it was post 9.
More phrasing on my part,
September
guys.
11th. Yes.
Excuse me.
We pick everyone up. We're the hardest interviewees you've ever...
I enjoy it.
What the hell are you talking about, man?
Force me to be more articulate.
Get your dates very specific.
Stephen, was that something that you said the politics of the film interested you? Is that what you meant by the politics?
Yes, of course. It's become more relevant now because of your president. Yes, it was always entertaining. I never thought it was the most serious thing in the world, but it was always there and always good fun.
When it comes to telling a story about this time period, the majority of movies and TV shows that we see are mainly about the stuffiness, and they focus on that, whereas yours is sort of there's a kind of smart-ass element of Queen Victoria playing with it and not enjoying it, and you get to see a sort of satirical version of it at the very least. Was that something that you were excited about portraying as well?
I could have made a more boring film. Is that what you were after?
Stephen, why didn't you make a more boring film?
Well, I said to the writer, this is ridiculous. You have to be duller than this.
You're like, this is way too entertaining.
Absolutely.
Can I... Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
No, I want to say that the Adil Akhtar, who plays Mohammed, the other Indian person who's brought over to present this coin to Queen Victoria, he's interesting because I think my analysis is that he's the audience representative in the film. He seems more like us than any other Indian character, any other British character, because he reacts like a human being going, what is this rubbish? Why are these people doing this? Let's just get out of here. And I like that. And he's a great actor. He just won the British Academy Award for television this year or last year. So, yeah, Adil. Yeah.
So I always liked that the way it was pitched at that comic level. I like those kind of films. I know a lot about Lubitsch and Billy Wilder and people like that. Yeah. So it always seemed to me it was like a sort of souffle bouncing off the ground. I thought that was wonderful.
You have an incredibly varied career as a filmmaker. And during the trailer, I whispered to you that one of my favorite movies is The Grifters, which is like a wonderful con artist film from 1990. You also have a crime movie like The Hit. You have High Fidelity. You have The Queen. What keeps you going as a filmmaker? What draws you to these stories? And how do you still feel like you're exploring your style as a filmmaker?
Well, I'm not exploring my style. I'm not remotely interested in that. But somebody comes to me with a story like this and a script like this. Why do you say no? In other words, somebody comes to me with something that is interesting and makes me get out of bed. It's really as simple as that. And if I made the same film time and time again, I'd be bored out of my minds.
Do you ever feel like you had a very specific style that you wanted to talk about as a filmmaker? Because I think back about something. No. Okay, I'll back off.
Who's interested in style? Do you go to the movies and say, "Oh, there was a rather nuanced tracking shot"? No, you just want to see the story. You want to see the actors. You want to know the story. I mean, that's all there is.
Absolutely. Is that something that you guys feel as actors on his set, that he is more interested in the story and in your performances?
Oh, he's got style.
He does have style. Come
Steven's got style.
Well, I think
there's beautiful camera work, and yes, it is motivated by story, but it is beautiful camera work.
But he is
all
instinctive. I think he works off his gut instincts.
I can see I've wasted my life. Yes, Ed is quite right. It comes off instincts.
It works off his instincts.
Usually a director's interviewer. I don't know what's going on here.
I'd like to say that I felt I was bonding to an extent with Stephen, because Stephen can be quite scary, and I was quite scared of him.
Yeah, no shit.
Sorry? Yeah. But let me tell you, we were in Osborne House, and we shot in Osborne House. This is actually Queen Victoria. She had it built with Albert. We were there for about 4 weeks. No one had ever shot a film in there. So we're actually in the place where these arguments are going on, which probably actually happened. She died in that house. And we had to wear English heritage. We say, does it that hang, boy? And of course, because it's very old stuff, I happened to get on and play on one of the pianos without asking anyone, which is a bit wrong. But everyone had to wear booties, little, like in a hospital, over your shoes. And Stephen had 2 on. It turned he only had 1 on. And I think I said something like, "Is that a fashion statement, Stephen?" And he said, "Why don't you fuck off and die?" And I thought, I think that was, I felt that was a bonding moment. And
that would make me so happy if someone said that to me in a work environment.
So that was a general day on the set.
And that's how you get your actor's careers comfortable.
Yeah.
A little hint of violence.
Add some violence to the mix. Ali, what was your biggest fear going into doing a movie like this, where you're in so many scenes with someone like Judi Dench?
Actually, it was
this guy. Yeah.
No, because
Actually, let's go back to that. What was the audition process like with him?
Can I say this, Stephen? Well, because this is my first meeting with Stephen, and he has this deli belly. He was you were miserable. I remember you came to India
in Bombay.
In Bombay, you remember that?
I had Delhi belly.
Yeah. I just remember you sprawled across the couch. I thought I'd blown it. I had no chances of getting this part, and I walked out, and I thought I'd never be called again. And then I got a call, and then I flew down to London. That was my first time on this film, and I sat with Stephen, and we sort of read a few parts. I think that's where I might have done something right. But yeah, it takes warming up, It's almost like you're deciphering Stephen Frears, It's on set. It's like a puzzle. Because the first 4 days, he didn't say anything to me. I went to Judi. I said, does he not like me? Nothing. But she says, no, that means you're good. You're fine.
Yeah. That is, a lot of great directors do this, where they cast well and then let people go and do their thing.
All they want is praise.
I said this to director.
I love you,
director Stefan Ruzawitsky, who's a very good director. He at the end of things he would say in his Austrian voice, he said, "Okay, moving on," and I'd said, "Stefan, does moving on mean we were good?" Because we moved on from the last scene, and he said, "Yeah, I suppose so. I don't know, just because that was it. He would never say any praise,
Just keep you wanting more. Just keep you working.
Yeah, just moving on. Means,
1, 2, 3. That's Stephen.
This is your second English language movie, right? After, am I wrong there? I mean, Furious 7 and now this.
Yeah, that was a cameo.
Now discuss his oeuvre.
You're not discuss his other films.
Discuss his English oeuvre.
His oeuvre.
I think you'll find it very coherent.
Yeah, exactly.
And probably you would like to talk to him about his style.
Oh, it's your comeback.
I will dig into this, Mr. Frears. You have an impeccable style on your first theatrical movie, The Hit. It is very on point, and it is also kind of obvious you were trying to make a statement with your style in that movie. And over the course of your career, you have not been more subtle in your style, but you have let the style reflect the story a lot more. And I think that is something that you see a lot with filmmakers who, out of the gate, are very eager to show what they can do.
If you say so.
I will not back down from you.
But I'd like to say this. In all honesty, I've had one of the most wonderful experiences because Stephen doesn't tell you what to do, as an actor and sort of keeps you thinking, and your game is always up because he very beautifully nudges you into what he really wants.
How does that nudge work? What is
well, I mean, it's he drop in hints here and there, and it makes you think, makes you question things, makes you question your choices as an actor.
You're also working with Dame Judi Dench, who has an incredible experience in history, who can sort of tonally know when things don't feel right.
Who never asks for that title, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We don't call her Dame Judy. We don't call her anything. But I mean, she's not... Because some people do say, can we have the word Dame in there? And doing these interviews, everyone's saying Dame Judi Dench. And she's just so relaxed. She's just Jude or Judy. That's what's great about her. She's a very human being. Sorry, I interrupted that question.
No, not at all, not at all.
That's interesting.
So what was it like for you going from Furious 7, though, to shooting this, just out of curiosity?
Similar film. Similar film.
Very similar, right? God, no, it was the costumes. I would love to give credit to Consolata Boyle. I mean, she's a maestro. She took me through that. Lee Hall's written a script that does not have timelines. It's the costumes that really, if you look carefully, they take you through 15 years of that. I mean, this could be a story over 5 days, and yet it's 15 years. So I think that was something very wonderfully
That's right. I was
crafted.
never sure if it took place over a weekend or over 30 years.
Yeah.
I was very, very vague about that.
Did you know yourself?
No. Well, I knew when Victoria died, but I never quite knew when it was started.
Let's get some questions from the audience. Let's see some of you take a run at Mr. Frears.
Okay. Hi. First off,
Are you a film student?
I was actually gonna say, yeah, I am a film student, and as a film student, I do see the style in your movies. From from watching Philomena and Florence Foster Jenkins, I can see the
Sicking my minions on you.
the great style that you have as a director, and it's very inspiring to me. So my question is, how was it for all of you to film at the actual Osborne house where Queen Victoria and Prince Albert actually lived at for this film?
Can I take it? I think it was great because I said this earlier, but the arguments we're having, the fighting, the fury, the actual death of Victoria, all happened in that house. No one's ever shot inside that. It was probably between Stephen and Judi Dench, the power that they have, the great work that they've done. They said, okay, you can come in. And English Heritage, we got to a good place with them, but initially they were worried because only 2 people sit on that one. Don't stand there. You can put gloves on, put a hat on, put some shoes on, and so it was very careful not to do that. But we got into a good working order, and it was great. When Ali is sent back in the middle of the film, and says, right, he's got a whole lying thing. He said he was Muslim. The Hindus had this rebellion, and Judy walks down this long corridor, and there's thunder and lightning going on. I was standing at the end of that, take after take, and that was wonderful. And that could have well happened in that thing, the thunder and lightning. It was just very atmospheric. I found it.
Yeah, and film crews are known to destroy locations, really, no matter where they are. I'm sure these people were incredibly nervous having you guys there.
Yes, but it was also positive, hopefully, for them, because now I think the film is...
Exactly. They've said they actually is going to increase tourism to the Isle of Wight, so you guys are responsible for that. Yeah. And they're really happy about it. Yeah. And it's a lovely place. It's a beautiful... I mean, the Indian corridor that you'll see there and the Indian rooms are gorgeous.
The Durbar room is fantastic. And Judy hadn't been in the Durbar room, and she said, I haven't seen it yet, because we were filming in other parts of the house. It's a huge house. It's a sort of palace. And I said, we can get you in there. So that Emma, one of the women from English Heritage, said, can we get Judy in? So we went down corridors, down corridors, down corridors, and we were in the Durbar room when the public was still there, being shown around. So there's about 10 people in there going... Is that Queen Victoria? And I'm there as Edward VII, Bertie, and someone got a camera and went, I got a camera. And I went, no, I was doing security detail
like
on
Disneyland.
As Queen Victoria walked around her room, and these 10 people were there and they saw it happen. I thought that was really nice.
Let's get another question.
Hi, guys. So I'm wondering, as actors, when you're doing a historical drama, is it helpful to pour over all of the history that's there when you're creating your character, or do you find it stifling? How do you balance that?
Well, it's hard. It's a lot of responsibility. It's also 130 years ago. So, you get this trickle-down knowledge from wherever. In this case, it was really hard. There was nothing on him in history. It's almost unfortunate. I mean, I wish I had studied about this. I should have. This was a big part of her life, the last 15 years. So but there was a lot of stuff that I got from Shrabani's, research. And then, Alan, who's on the art department, they really helped us. I went through a lot of history books. I mean, I wish I'd read so much in school, but it was a lot. And I still remember coming across this one autobiography that Dr. Reed had written. And there was a chapter called The Munshi Mania in there. It's like chapter 7 or something. It was nice to sort of see that side of the perspective. But it is, somewhere you have to put in a large part of yourself, otherwise you're basically lying. Yeah, we try to be honest, I guess.
I went with Bertie because I knew I like history. I find it fascinating because human beings, we keep repeating ourselves. Right now we're repeating 1930s politics in the world, which say, hey, let's try that. How was that last time? With a certain president. Yeah, I didn't read a book on that. So anyway, Bertie was interesting. He was waiting all his life to be king. He ended up being king for 11 years, it was more colourful and more bright when he did it. But he was called Dirty Bertie. He was having sex all around Europe, had a chair made. You can Google that. That's nothing to do with our story. But I was keen to find out how he was with his mother, what the reasons why him and his mother didn't get on. And Victoria and Albert brought Bertie up badly. 15 minutes, they saw each other 15 minutes morning, 15 minutes in the evening. He wasn't allowed to mix with any other boys, any other kids. There was one teacher that he was interacting with who started getting on with his teacher, and then the teacher was moved away. Don't have any positive relationships with this child. It was all wrong, and Bertie was off the rails by the time he was 20, and she blamed him for the death of her husband. So I needed to know that. That underpins the whole thing. It's really like headmaster and headmaster's wife. They're like people at school rather than emotional people to him. So that drove his relationship with Victoria.
How do you feel like that affected the specifics of your performance and really sort of the nuances of what you were doing when it comes to this setting and this time, not just dealing with Queen Victoria, but how you're presenting yourself, how you're walking, how you're...
Well, both the characters are eating themselves to death. The Queen was apparently as tall as she was wide, which is kind of scary. And I had to put on 12 kilos. I'd just run 27 marathons in 27 days in South Africa about 4 months before that. And then I had to come back and pile on the weight. 27
marathons in 27 days?
Yeah, it's a thing.
That's a true story.
You have to Google it. But it was in honor of Nelson Mandela. He 27 years in prison, so I thought I'd go to South Africa, run from where he was born to where he became president. But that was in March, and we filmed in August, September. Yeah. So I was just eating like crazy to put it on. And then there's tailoring from Consolata Ball, Daniel Phillips, the whole look. I had to move totally differently. I had to drop my voice into the rib cage. And once I had that, then it was toe-to-toe with Judi Dench. Most of the time, and the key thing I worked out was that I would fight her every step of the way. She has got the ball. It's a game of ball. She has the ball. Can I play with the ball? And she was saying no my entire life.
I think we have time for one more question.
Hi, I just want to warn you I'm another film student. So this is kind of jumping off the previous question, kind of aimed more for the author and the director. When you have something that's based on historical fact and history, how do you balance that with making a book and then a film that's dramatically and emotionally interesting? And I always say when a film is based on facts or even a documentary, don't let the truth get in the way of a good film.
Stephen, to answer.
Well, you answered your own question. You're absolutely right. I mean, what you said was faultless. You draw a sort of line, it's completely arbitrary. I remember the Queen's secretary, the man who actually appeared, who was in Balmoral that week and who appears in the film of the Queen. He said, well, you got everything wrong, but you got it right. There's a sort of rightness of itself is rather tedious, but the larger sense of rightness, of course, is very, very important. So what you're saying is absolutely right.
Shrabani, do you want to answer?
Oh, well, I wrote the book, so, my book is still there for anybody who wants to go and, get the real story. But I was happy with the adaptation. Most of the plot points are there, and, a little bit of tweaking and artistic license, which is fine. And the most important thing was that this story was going to be, he was erased from history. And when you make a film which is funny and people go to see rather than some, art house film which nobody's going to see somewhere, the most important thing is that the story is told. People will know that Queen Victoria learned Urdu for 13 years. I think it's a big deal. Yeah. And, the story of Abdul and what he did. So, yeah, I think it's great that the story is out there and it's told in a popular way. And hopefully everybody will see it.
Yeah, I just think it's love across a great divide, at a time of great hatred in the world. This is two people. Forget about the class divides, all these layers of bullshit, essentially, that exist in human beings. 10,000 years of civilization, we're all just the same. If you cut us, do we not bleed? And we all bleed the same blood and the same genetics, maybe different O types and ABs and whatever, but, we're all human beings, and we spend so much time trying to separate ourselves out and murder each other. We've got to work it out this century, and this is a great love story.
Absolutely. On that note, guys, when can people see Victoria and Abdul? When can people check it out in theaters? Now.
When's it out?
I think 22nd.
I think it's, September 22nd. It comes out in theaters. Guys, let's give a round of applause to our guests. Thank you so much for being here.